How do you follow up a successful genre-changing game that millions fell in love with? Capcom's answer was to go bigger and better in every department. Resident Evil 2 takes the groundwork set down by its predecessor and does an amazing job of creating one of the best survival horror games of all time. Resident Evil 2 carries on from where Resident Evil 1 left off. 2 months later, the mansion was destroyed and the star survivors have disappeared. The nearby Raccoon City was suffered an outbreak similar to the mansion incident. 2 playable characters are on their way in the city, unaware of what is taking place. Leon Kennedy is a rookie police officer heading in for his first day on the job, going into the Raccoon City Police Force. Claire Redfield is arriving to find out where her missing brother has gone to. Her brother being Chris Redfield from the first game. Shortly after arriving, they are both attacked by the residents of Raccoon City, now transformed into zombies. As they try to escape, they run into each other and end up commandeering a police car. As they tear down the street, trying to make sense of what is going on, they are unaware of an out-of-control gas truck behind them. After being attacked by a zombie hiding in the backseat, Leon loses control of the police car, crashing into a signpost. As the duo recovers, the following gas truck bears down on them, forcing them to get out of the car either side. The truck crashes, turns over and explodes, blocking the street in a wall of flame. Separated Leon tells Claire to meet him at the police station, and this is where the player takes control depending on what character they have chosen to play as. Playing as Leon or Claire, the story will pan out pretty much the same except for different plot and character elements. This side of the story is seen as a scenario, a complete Leon scenario. And you will be rewarded with the other side of the story. Claire's scenario B. The same story applies, completing Claire's A game with Leon's B game being unlocked. This allows you to see the computer story as it is supposed to be. The difference between the A and B scenarios is huge, and an opportunity to see how the two paths cross over. As well as playing as Leon or Claire at times, through either story, you will get to take control of additional characters for small sections. Leon's side of the story will see you take control of the elusive Abba Wong, who claims to be looking for her boyfriend. Remember the umbrella passwords in the original? Claire's side sees you take control of the young girl Sherry Birkin. Sherry is an integral part of the Resident Evil story as it becomes apparent she is the daughter of the scientist responsible for the new G virus, the cause of the infection in Raccoon City. The main protagonist throughout Resident Evil 2 is William Birkin, the scientist responsible for the G virus. Having been betrayed by his employees in Umbrella, shot and left for dead, he purposely infected himself with the G virus, transforming him into a monstrous deadly weapon. Throughout the game, you will face William Birkin as a boss a number of times. Each time, his transformation develops more and more, resulting in some really unique and interesting monster forms, as well as we have Birkins as the main threat. There are a huge number of other threats throughout Raccoon City. Returning from the original games are the zombies, the fleecing dogs, and the crows. Replacing the devastating hunter is the licker, a spineless wall crawler with an exposed brain, razor-sharp claws, and an expendable tongue that it uses it to attack with. Throw in cockroaches, plants. Name plant 43, an alligator, a giant moth, and T00, who you won't meet until scenario B. And there are more than enough things to kill throughout Raccoon City. One of the most interesting things in Resident Evil 2 is the city and the area you get to explore. Admittedly, there are a few times that you really get to explore the outside, and those moments are surprisingly linear, but they feel extremely authenticate. The detail in Resident Evil 2 is excellent. Every alley is filled with rubbish. The police station office is covered with paperwork. There is a lot to take in, and the Resident Evil fixed the camera angles and really allowed you to see everything. Character-wise, Leon and Claire are both interesting and richly detailed with backstory. Both have stapled parts of the Resident Evil franchise today, but it's hard to not argue with the belief that Resident Evil 2 is the best game in the franchise. The supporting cast, both the good guys and the bad, all live up to the task. Sherry Birkin is probably the only real downside, as she is very irritating, and where you control her, it can be very frustrating. Some of the significant changes to this sequel are the controls and weapons. Leon and Claire feel a lot less like tanks. They control more fluidly and more naturally. Add the damage will affect how they move, and you can clearly see how much of an improvement it is. There is also more variety in the weapons and most upgradable weapons. An example is the handgun, which can get an upgrade that sees you shoot 3 bullets in quick succession rather than 1, and the shotgun can get extended barrel for more damage. Inventory gas is just as important, and the Resident Evil cheats make a reappearance, as does herb mixing, a puzzle galore. They range from the thought of provoking to the simple and most yield keys, and the like to help you progress through the game. There is rarely a puzzle that will leave you scratching your head and scrambling for a frack. This brings me to the other major criticisms. Resident Evil 2 is not difficult. It's not a difficult game. It is generous with herbs, ammo, and puzzle hints. There are plenty of saved rooms and ink ribbons. It feels like the creators are trying to kill you, something that has been prevalent in the original. When I hear fans complain about how they don't make survival horror like they used to, and refer to Resident Evil 4 as the start of the decline, I always refer them to Resident Evil 2. It was the first of the bunch to make things easier, to give you submachine guns and involve bigger set pieces. Resident Evil is a survival game, but it was dropping hints about the direction the series would go to eventually. However, Resident Evil 2 is a great game with plenty of extra to keep you coming back for more. As well as for scenarios to play, you can also unlock a challenge mode where you can play as an Umbrella Oppressive hunk aiming to set the best time for completion. Players meeting specific requirements can also unlock a similar mode where you can play as a piece of tofu. Yes, you can play as tofu. There are the usual infinite weapons and unlockable costumes for you to hunt down. Comparing it to the original content-wise, Resident Evil 2 is a fast improvement. Resident Evil 2 is an improvement over the original game in all, but one area survival horror. It continues and builds on a fascinating world and story, one that you want to see more of and one that you keep returning to year after year. Interesting characters with great stories, huge variety in enemies and weapons, as well as really a satisfying ending. This is probably the definitive Resident Evil experiences. Resident Evil 2 gets a 9 out of 10 for me. This is Red Wolf 316 signing out, and I'll see you next time. Peace.